Coming up on KCCI 8 News Close Up, with Election Day about 2 weeks away, how campaigns are pushing early voting as they hope to bolster turnout. District 2 congressional candidates clash in a debate, the issues they're most divided over as they make their case to voters. And it's a rematch for Iowa's 4th District, where the candidates stand on the issues that mean the most to voters in Northwest Iowa.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close Up.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close Up. I'm Amanda Rooker. Well, there is just 16 days until Election Day, and Iowans can now cast their ballot early. KCCI's Bo Bowman talked with voters at the Polk County Election Office on the first day of early voting, where the line there stretched outside the building.
All around the block,
I had to get here, make sure I got done.
early voters waited for their turn
The line was great. We were through in an hour.
to be the first Iowans to cast their ballots in the 2024 election.
Something happens to you on the voter day of November 5th and you don't make it, you'll regret it.
By 10:30 Wednesday morning, 400 people had already voted early in Polk County.
These voters are enthusiastic. They want to be one of the first ones to cast their ballot.
Polk County Auditor Jamie Fitzgerald says early voting is becoming more popular. On day one, he says they typically see about 1,500 voters, and just by eyeballing the line outside his office, he thinks this year they'll see much more.
People have been patiently waiting to cast their ballot. We've got a number of calls saying, when are you going to open? When can we come down?
The Democratic Party is known to push early and absentee voting. Republicans tend to like to vote on Election Day at the polls. But this year, Republicans like Senator Chuck Grassley are pushing their supporters to vote as soon as they can.
A lot of times, by Election Day, the Democrats have already won the election. So that's why Republicans ought to be smart enough to get out there and bank their vote early.
When you vote early, you get your voter credit, which you can look up online on the Secretary of State's website. Campaigns can see that too, and will stop sending mailers and robocalls. These ballots will be locked up in a secure location for the next 3 weeks, opened the day before the election to be counted.
Keep it locked up, keep it very limited on who can get in and out of that. And then the day before the election, they'll be opened.
Bo Bowman, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
And candidates from both parties are pushing early voting as they try to lock up support, especially in Iowa's 3rd district race. That is expected to be one of the most competitive in the country. With roughly 2 weeks until Election Day,
In electoral politics, the three most important factors are turnout, turnout, and turnout.
KCCI political analyst Dennis Goldford says the parties are doing everything they can to secure every vote.
When every vote is something that every party wants to make sure it gets, early voting is a way of banking those votes early.
In 2022, Iowa's 3rd district race was determined by just over 2,000 votes. It's expected to be an extremely tight race again, where every vote counts.
Can I give you a pen? I know. Can you help me out?
Republican incumbent Zach Nunn cast his own vote early, bringing along his daughter and asking supporters to show up big at the ballot box.
The enthusiasm is there. We have been out door knocking thousands of doors, and at every door we've been telling people, make a plan to vote. Whether you vote early, like we just did today, or whether you vote on Election Day, Republicans are keeping up. And we're already seeing that true in the absentees, where we have historic high turnout.
Nunn's Democratic challenger, Lennon Bacom, also visiting the Polk County Election Office, greeting supporters.
Thank you for your support.
Reflecting on his campaign's effort.
Our campaigns have been hitting the doors, going to folks' homes, dropping lit. Tens of thousands of Iowans have been contacted about the importance of this election.
And encouraging Iowans to cast their ballot.
We've been pushing folks to vote early, and there's no question that that's a really critical part of ensuring people get a chance to voice their opinions in this race.
Still to come on Close Up, Iowa's 2nd district debate, the key moments as Ashley Hinson and Sarah Corkery squared off. But first, a closer look at Iowa's 4th district race, the rematch between Randy Feenstra and Ryan Melton. We talk to both when we come back. Iowa's 4th congressional district covers the state's northwest corner. It includes urban centers like Council Bluffs, Sioux City, and Ames, but the district's also largely rural, covering a collection of small towns. Now, voter registration in the 4th district shows Republicans have a large advantage with almost double the amount of registered Democrats. There are also more no-party voters in the 4th district than registered Democrats. Republican incumbent Randy Feenstra is running for re-election. Feenstra unseated the embattled longtime Congressman Steve King in the 2020 Republican primary. Well, Congressman Randy Feenstra, thank you so much for making time to chat with us today. We appreciate it.
It's great to be on. Thank you very much.
Well, first I want to ask you, why are you running for re-election?
It's so important that we make sure that we deliver conservative results. And that's what I've done for the last 4 years for all 36 counties in the 4th district, to deliver conservative results for our families, for our farmers, and for our small businesses. And that's why I run, to try to find solutions, to try to make a difference for the 4th district and for our families, producers, and small businesses.
When you talk about those solutions, what does that specifically look like? If you were reelected, what are the top 3 things that you would want to accomplish?
Yeah, it's so important. Number one is we've got to get inflation under control. I mean, we have families going to the grocery store with $100, eggs are triple the cost, bread's double the cost, milk's double the cost. I mean, these are real dollars that families are struggling with. That they just can't, they don't have enough dollars to hardly even feed their family. Number two is we got to build the wall. We have to make sure that we know who's coming in and out of this country. This is so dangerous what we have. We've actually found that we've had terrorists come through. I hear it from our schools and from our hospitals that they're burdened with whether it be fentanyl, the drugs that people are using, to those that don't have insurance. I mean, this is very significant. And then finally, we got to make sure that we help our producers. Right now, our commodity prices are the lowest they've ever been, with soybeans under $10, corn at $4. These are some really concerning times right now that we've got to find solutions to.
Iowans are still dealing with high prices when they go to the grocery store, when they try to get household items. What specific policy can you push for in Congress to lower costs for Iowans?
Well, what created inflation is the out-of-control spending of the Harris-Biden administration. We spent recklessly, and that has dramatically increased inflation. So first of all, you got to stop spending. You got to get spending under control. Number two is we have the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that all these tax cuts that were put in place in 2017, they all sunset, which will dramatically create inflation because families will pay an extra $4,000 to $7,000 in extra taxes. Small businesses will pay anywhere from $14,000 to $21,000 in new taxes. So these are the things that I sit on Ways and Means that we're working on to make sure we extend these taxes, to make sure that we also stop spending. And then finally, there's extra costs when you have illegals coming through, 10,000 a day. It's a burden on our schools, it's a burden on our hospitals, fentanyl, our police forces, and that's got to stop. And these are 3 passions that we've got to get done and get resolved.
Are there any specific pieces of policy that you think that Congress should pass on the topic of abortion? Any specific restrictions that you would support at the federal level?
Well, I'll just say this, is that I'm a man of faith. And my faith teaches me that every child is born for a purpose and a reason in life. And the Bible teaches me that. And I just can't move away from that. And that's just my faith. And I live by my faith each day.
Do you think that there should be any policy to protect in vitro fertilization treatments or to expand access to over-the-counter contraception?
I'm a big proponent of in vitro fertilization. I see how important it is for families that cannot have children naturally. And I'm a big supporter, and I've signed on to several bills in the U.S. House to do that. These are important things, and also adoption is so critical to make sure that we have the opportunity and tax credits that allow families, if they want to adopt. These are critical things. And then also, I wrote my doctorate on maternity health care, how important it is for women to have access to health care. This is very important to our rural communities.
Looking at your district, there are many counties that are primarily rural, and we've seen over the past decade a lot of decline in education, in healthcare, and mental health in some of these more rural areas. What's your message to people who say, I've trusted Republicans for 40 years in the 4th district, but I'm not seeing the results that I would like to see?
Well, you nailed it. I'm from a small town in Hull, Iowa, a town of 2,500 population. I was a city administrator, and you work hard every single day to try to grow that community. And at the state level and then at the federal level, it's the same thing. Every day, trying to work for our families, trying to work for that small business on Main Street, trying to work for that producer. How small communities grow is making sure that they have jobs, making sure that they have housing, making sure they have daycare, making sure that there's opportunity to grow their manufacturing or that business on Main Street. And that's what I try to work with every day, to try to find solutions to those issues. And then finally, obviously, rural health care. I mean, people are driving anywhere from 30 to 70 miles for health care. That is catastrophic. We cannot have that. So working with EMS plans, working to make sure we have hospitals and clinics and maternity units open, mental health clinics open, veterans clinics. These are all issues that I'm working with in Congress to make sure that we have a better 4th district that continues to grow.
Congressman, your opponent, Ryan Melton, does have the endorsement of Republican Kevin Virgil, who faced you in the primary. Virgil, in his endorsement, wrote that you're not doing enough for the rank and file Republicans in your district. What's your response to that criticism?
I tell you what, you have two liberal progressives working together. And what I'll do every single day is create conservative results. Lower your taxes. Make sure that when you go to that grocery store, that those prices on eggs or groceries that are lowered. Making sure that you have good quality education. Lower the cost of health insurance. I mean, every day, rank and file people, this is what affects the pocketbook at home, and these are the things that I look at. And then finally, independent. We have to make sure our country is energy independent, and that works with making sure that we have ethanol and biodiesel that helps our farm producers.
Randy Feenstra, we really appreciate you making time and talking with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
When we come back, we talk with Feenstra's opponent, Democrat Ryan Melton, why he's giving it another go in Iowa's 4th district. Welcome back to Close Up. We are taking a closer look at the race to represent Northwest Iowa in Congress. I sat down with Democrat Ryan Melton to talk about why he's running for a second time in Iowa's 4th district. Well, Ryan Melton, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Why are you running for Congress?
Well, the initial reason why I ran in 22, which is a similar situation we were facing this time, is that no other Democrat was going to do it. And if you don't have anyone on the ballot that's representing the interests, the values of hundreds of thousands of people in the district, to me, I find that to be unacceptable. And so my life wasn't really built for something like this. I've got a full-time job, a wife and 2 kids, but for whatever reason, I felt compelled to do it because the people deserve someone who's going to advocate for them. And also, I've talked to plenty of Republicans who are grateful that I'm doing it too, because they know that regardless of political affiliation, whoever is in office best operates when there's accountability and competition.
What are the top things that you would like to accomplish if you were elected to Congress?
There's a lot of them. The carbon capture pipelines are a big deal right now in my congressional district. There's been a lot of frustration that there's been federal tax credits that have been incentivizing Summit Carbon Solutions to lay these pipelines. These pipelines bring along with it a big threat of eminent domain abuse, public health, waste of taxpayer money. Also, a really big concern that comes up over and over on the campaign trail is the general hollowing out of our congressional district. Of our 36 counties, the vast majority of them have seen steady population decline over the past 40 years, and that's led to a real plummet in quality of life indicators across the board. Last in the country now is a state in OBGYN availability rate, mental health care bed availability rate. We're the only state in the country with a rising cancer incidence rate. Our public education rankings are plummeting, and we have a much lower per capita household income than most of the states in the Midwest. And so we need to find a way to incentivize keeping our young folks here and to draw experts in.
When you talk to people and you bring up that list of areas that are in decline in the district. How do you convince Republicans that you would be a better fit in the district to solve those issues, even though you're a registered Democrat?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways I can do it and have been doing it. You know, I've been speaking to rooms full of Republicans the entire cycle, and we agree on a lot more than we don't agree on. But as far as convincing them to make a different voting decision this November, you know, I'd say first and foremost, I was endorsed by Kevin Virgil, who was the Republican challenger in the primary to Randy Feenstra. And he makes the argument that there's been 40 plus years of Republican leadership in our congressional district, and we've seen the results of that, that the party has lost sight of its obligation to its rank and file voters, to the people on the ground, and they've done a lot more to fulfill the supposed obligations they have to their big money donors. And so he thinks that it's time for the rank and file Republican voters to send a message to the leadership within the Iowa Republican Party that they can no longer take their rank and file voters for granted. And so I appreciate the bravery with which Kevin Virgil operated when he endorsed me. We certainly disagree on plenty of things, but he's a man of principle, and I respect that. But you know, all the things that I've mentioned regarding the hollowing out, the decline in quality of life indicators across the board, those are nonpartisan issues. You know, cancer is not just a Democratic issue, right? The collapse of rural health care is not just a Democratic issue. That affects Republicans too. So there are a lot of things that Republican rank and file voters are very frustrated about, and they just don't feel like they're getting any advocacy on those fronts from their Republican Party leadership at this point.
Are there any steps that you could take in Congress to lower costs for Iowans?
Well, you know, one is we have way too much monopoly power running most of our major industries. And so we definitely need to find innovative ways to encourage competition, to encourage the development of new business and economic opportunity, so that we have more price power, we have more choice as consumers.
What specific steps could you take in Congress to secure the U.S. southern border and also to improve federal immigration policy?
As far as securing the border, well, I mean, the first thing that often gets missed in all of this is there is international law that binds us to give those seeking amnesty a fair hearing and to give them the opportunity to express reasons as to why they should be welcomed here. But the problem is we have a real backlog in amnesty cases. We don't have the sufficient number of amnesty judges to adjudicate those cases. And the fact of the matter is you have to fund the areas of note to improve them. Now, it's not as simple as just throwing money at a situation. You have to be thoughtful about how you do it. But if the money isn't there, the problems are not going to be solved.
On the topic of abortion, is there any point in a pregnancy that you think would be justifiable for Congress to require restrictions on abortion?
Well, I think we need to get back to the regulations that were set forth in Roe. So I'd codify Roe. Under the Roe schematic, it did leave open the door for, you know, after that 24-week mark, after viability, that some restrictions would begin. Those restrictions primarily would still allow things like abortion after that 24-week mark in situations of medical emergency. And that's really the only reason or the only situation that drives abortion after that 24-week mark. This idea that someone who becomes pregnant immediately loses their agency and control over their body and their decision making the moment they become pregnant is absolutely illogical to me. I don't think that's humane. I don't think that's defensible in any way. And so we would need, what I would be an advocate for is making sure that post-viability, we would need to be extremely careful to make sure that if there is a health situation, a medical emergency, that the pregnant person doesn't feel like they don't have the option, and that the healthcare provider feels also like they have the freedom to make that decision if in their best judgment it is the right decision without fear of legal ramification.
Well, Ryan Milton, thank you so much for making time and talking to us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still to come on Close Up, breaking down the District 2 debate where the candidates stand on abortion access and immigration. Last week, Iowa PBS hosted a second congressional district debate with Republican incumbent Ashley Hinson and Democrat Sarah Corkery. Independent Jody Puffett says she did not meet the criteria to participate.
The District 2 candidates quickly clashing over immigration during Monday night's debate. The discussion comes as 60% of Iowans say securing the border is critical, according to the most recent Des Moines Register Mediacom Iowa poll. Hinson focusing on the border.
Let's focus on getting these dangerous criminals out of our country, and then let's focus on making sure we're talking, after we secure our southern border, which needs to be a part of this conversation, the right amount of illegal immigration to this country should be zero, and let's focus on our visa programs.
Corkery pitching immigration as a vital support for Iowa's economy.
We know prices have gone up, and that's a problem. We also know 73% of people working in agriculture were not born here. So we need immigrants to help us build a stronger community. If we lost all of our immigrants in Iowa, we would be in big trouble.
The two also sparring over abortion access, addressing Iowa's current law, which bans most abortions at around 6 weeks of pregnancy. Corkery says in Congress she would protect reproductive rights, indicating she does not support any government restrictions on abortion.
I trust women to make this decision because it's heart-wrenching and serious. When I was pregnant with my son at 38 weeks, we both almost died. If you say a number of weeks, then your next question should be, is the mother's life at risk? Is there a fetal anomaly that makes this incompatible with life? These are scary, terrible things.
Moderators pressing Hinson on the issue, as she says she'll only support legislation with exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother.
Let's talk about those exceptions. You say that those are very important to you. In January of this year, you co-sponsored the Life at Conception Act, which says that life begins at the moment of conception. If that bill were enacted, it would ban abortions without exception. So where should Iowans believe you on this issue?
Yeah, well, that bill is about valuing life, which is my spectrum of work on this issue, which I just described. So again, no bill will receive my vote unless it includes those exceptions, and it'll go through the process like any other piece of legislation. I would ensure that before I took that vote on the
floor. So if that bill came before you, you would vote no on it?
As it is currently written, yes.
I sat down with all three candidates running to represent Iowa's 2nd District. You can find our full conversation about where they stand on issues like the economy and education at kcci.com. Just make sure to click the menu on the left side of the screen and select the Close-Up tab. Well, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley says Congress may be one step closer on a new 5-year farm bill after work has stalled for months. The most recent farm bill extension expired at the start of the month. Time is running out for Congress to strike a deal.
With 2 weeks in November and 3 weeks in December that we're in session, it just doesn't seem to me we have the time to do it.
Grassley says he wants to see the farm bill developed by the Agriculture Committee rather than a plan from outside help. The senator wants the proposal to include crop insurance improvements, protections for Iowa's pork producers, and a funding cap on larger single-family farms. Well, thanks for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close-Up. We'll see you back here next Sunday. Have a great day.